Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to an immediate ceasefire, pledging to halt weeks of deadly border clashes from noon local time. A joint statement says the truce covers all weapons and bans attacks on civilians, infrastructure and military targets. A Russian drone and missile barrage on Kyiv kills one person, wounds dozens and leaves hundreds of thousands without power and heating in freezing temperatures. The hours-long air alert comes ahead of President Volodymyr Zelensky's planned meeting with President Donald Trump to discuss a possible peace plan. Saudi-led forces have warned that they are ready to act directly against Yemen's separatists, while Riyadh urges them to peacefully hand back seized territory, while Saudi officials say the priority is protecting civilians after airstrikes in Hadramaut and escalating tensions with UAE-backed forces. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has urged restraint and diplomacy as violence in Yemen escalates. He has said that Washington supports efforts towards a lasting solution while avoiding taking sides between Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Israel becomes the first country to formally recognize Somaliland as an independent state, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promising cooperation in key sectors. Somalia opposes secession, while President Donald Trump says he does not support U.S. recognition of Somaliland. French police arrest a man suspected of stabbing 3 women in the Paris metro during year-end festivities. Prosecutors say he is tracked through surveillance footage and his mobile phone before being detained north of the Paris. The UN Secretary General says attacks on civilians and places of worship are unacceptable and calls for those responsible to be brought to justice. At least 8 worshippers are killed in an explosion at a mosque in a predominantly Alawite area of Homs claimed by an Islamist group. Argentina's Congress approves the 2026 budget, the first under President Javier Milei, including about $102 billion in spending and projecting 5% growth with 10.1% inflation. The plan forecasts a primary surplus of 1.2% of GDP, marking a return to formal budget approval after 2 years of rollovers. Now for this hour, we start with Russia and Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that the recent Russian drone and missile attack on Kyiv shows that Russia does not want to end the war. This comes after a Russian drone and missile barrage on Kyiv and its suburbs killed 1 person, wounded 2 dozen, and cut off heating and electricity for hundreds of thousands of people. They have been left in freezing temperatures. An air alert lasted several hours after loud overnight explosions, some accompanied by bright flashes that turned the sky orange. President Zelensky has made the comments ahead of his departure for talks in the United States with President Donald Trump on the plan to halt the Russia-Ukraine war. Now for this discussion, we welcome Professor Georgi Toleraya. He's a professor of Russia Academy of Science, joins us live from Bangkok. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at these barrages from, not just Ukraine, not just on Ukraine, but of course on Russia as well, as it continues from both sides, how do you think this is jeopardizing the talks that are going to be taking place soon this weekend? And also, how do you see how aligned are U.S. and Ukraine right now?
Well, I think this is the classic psychological trick, trying to blame others to cover one's own blame. Of course, the strikes continue and will continue as long as there's no peace talks and no agreement. And this current Russian strike will in fact reply for the night attack of Ukrainian drones. But that doesn't matter much. The matter is that it's Zelensky, his so-called 20-point plan, which is absolutely unacceptable, which has not taken into account the agreements reached between US and Russia, and this plan was aimed at breaking the negotiation process. So now, to draw attention away from his cowardly act, trying to continue the war and jeopardize negotiations, Zelensky is trying to put the blame on Russia for just a routine strike, and this is done exactly before his visit to US, just to gain some sympathy from his Western supporters. It's a very cheap trick, and I don't even want to spend too much time commenting on it.
Do you think this tactic, although used, like you've mentioned, by Zelensky many times to earn empathy, do you think it is working, or do you see any tiredness or loss of support for Ukraine along the allies or traditional allies of Ukraine?
I cannot hear you right, but I've said, and I can repeat, that Zelensky only aim is to continue war and to postpone election and to cling to power. That's why he wants to present himself as a victim, and he wants to blame Russia for everything in order to get some sympathy and support from his Western allies, and including, in this case, he wants to draw President Trump attention, and he wants to get more money and more support to continue war as long as possible, because the end of the war means the end of himself.
Right. Professor, thank you for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on to Poland, 2 airports in southeastern Poland have been reopened after a temporary shutdown triggered by Russian strikes on Ukraine. Operations at Rzeszów and Lublin airports were restored after military air activity in the region was completed, according to Poland's Air Navigation Services Agency. Earlier flights had been suspended as Polish and Allied fighter jets were scrambled in response to overnight Russian attacks across the Ukrainian border. The operational command of the Polish armed forces later confirmed that all missions had ended and no violation of Polish airspace were detected. According to the reports, the closures were precautionary, with air safety prioritized amid heightened regional tensions. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back Professor Georgy Toleraya. He's a professor of Russia Academy of Science. Moscow joins us live from Bangkok. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. I hope you can hear me right now. Professor, how can NATO countries balance precautionary security measures with maintaining normal civilian operations and activities while this conflict erupts in their neighbor? Professor, we cannot hear you over here.
Yes, I think this is a bit of a strange reaction by the Polish authorities, because the strikes of Russia were mostly targeted at the east of Ukraine, very far from Polish borders, although the area that was declared on whole the territory of Ukraine, but there was no sign of any direct threat by mistake or in any other way to the Polish territory proper, let alone these airports. So this is a sort of internal desire of Polish authorities to frighten their own population, to increase the concern of the Polish population about something that they call possible war with Russia, and just to show that they're doing something which is not needed in fact.
So why is Poland, as building on your answer, what is Poland gaining by spreading fear within their own country right now like that?
No, of course, it's up to Poland. Do whatever they can, declare martial law, they can do whatever, but they're trying to justify it by some sort of a Russian threat, citing the Russian strikes against Ukraine. This is a little bit strange to me.
Yes, and can you tell us a little bit more about Poland's current party in charge or current leader who is very much, he is encouraging more military participations, and he's making a lot of changes to he's taking the lead, or Poland is now taking the lead in, military efforts within NATO. So can you tell us a little bit more about him?
Well, Poland is traditionally heading the efforts of the EC, and it's one of the most active members of European Union, which want to oppose Russia, and they're doing quite a lot by helping Ukraine. And well, it's considered in Russia as one of the principal opponents in this situation. So there's not much new, not much change. It can be solved only through overall settlement of Ukrainian conflicts. Then I think that Poland can take a more rational policy.
So if the government is like that, are the people of Poland supportive of this stance by the government?
Well, I have not seen any recent sociological research or any information, but as far as I understand that a large portion of the population think that the government is right, while other part is not so happy with what's going on.
With that, I would like to thank Professor Georgi Toleraev for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Asia. A new ceasefire has taken effect between Thailand and Cambodia, halting nearly 3 weeks of deadly border clashes between the two Southeast Asian neighbors. The truce came into force today at noon. The agreement has been signed by Thai Defense Minister Nathapon Narkphanit and Cambodian Defense Minister T. Seha. It brings an end to 20 days of fighting that killed at least 101 people and displaced more than 500,000 civilians on both sides. The violence involved multiple missions involving fighter jets, rocket fire, and heavy artillery barrages. Under the deal, both sides have agreed to maintain current troop deployments without further movement. However, Thailand's defense ministry has struck a cautious tone, saying that 72-hour ceasefire is not an act of trust or an unconditional acceptance. In a statement, it has warned that if the truce fails, it will signal a lack of sincerity from Cambodia. Let's listen in.
The most important point in this joint statement is that both sides shall maintain their current troop levels in the area, with no movement or reinforcement towards one another, and no renewed attacks or provocations. The ceasefire will be monitored and observed for 72 hours to confirm that it is real and continuous. Once the situation stabilizes, civilians will be able to safely return to their homes, after which the 18 detained Cambodian soldiers will be released when the hostilities cease, according to the international norm and practice.
Now, the ceasefire will be monitored by observers from the ASEAN nations, alongside direct coordination between the two Thai-Cambodia militaries and policy-level communication between defense chiefs. Meanwhile, the foreign ministers of both countries are set to meet Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in China's Yunnan province shortly to further discuss the border situation. Now we move on to India. Thick toxic smog has blanketed New Delhi once again, pushing the city's air quality to dangerously high levels, according to SAFER, the government-run weather forecasting agency. The air quality index has reached 365, placing the capital firmly in the severe category. The dense smog, reducing visibility across the city, caused traffic to slow to a crawl and has raised serious health concerns for residents. Winter weather in Delhi often traps pollution from vehicles, construction sites, and crop burning, creating heavy smog that affects the city and surrounding areas and its people. These conditions have made New Delhi one of the most polluted cities in the world, with experts warning people to take precautions, especially those with respiratory conditions, children, and the elderly. Thick toxic smog has blanketed New Delhi once again, pushing the city's air quality to dangerously high levels, according to the SAFAR, the government-run weather forecasting agency. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Anand Arya. He's an environmental expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Arya, for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World. What more can you tell us about this, ongoing extreme pollution levels in India, but particularly in New Delhi?
Well, I think the causes of this and how it has come to be to this extent has been known to us from almost 2017, when Environment Pollution Protection Authority, established by Supreme Court, documented every source, the quantum of each source is causing towards air pollution, and what are the possible solutions. Then in 2022, CAQM, Commission for Air Quality Management, was established under the law and given a lot of teeth. Now, even that, they also came out with a policy. So, of completely, what is to be done, how it is to be done, when it is to be done. Now, therefore, to say that we don't know what are the sources and what has caused or is going to cause these this level of pollution is, I think, something, it's all known. Now, the question is, what is the solution? The solutions lie in implementing these targets. Now, for this, number one, in my opinion, and my considered opinion, I will say, the first thing that the government has to show the political will that we will clean up the air in Delhi NCR and also in the rest of the country. I mean, that should be their about objective of cleaning the air, number one. Number two, a similar thing of a promise has to come, and objective has to come from the administration, that this particular plan, good, bad, or indifferent, it doesn't matter today. As we go along, we can refine. But whatever is there on the table, good, bad, or indifferent, it must be ruthlessly implemented. Number three, I should not be saying this, but I'm quite disappointed with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, especially in India, the 34 justices are equipped with powers that are unprecedented anywhere in the world. And that is to say that they are required, they can dispense, and they are required to dispense complete justice under Article 142. I cannot understand why they are not, actually getting and using that particular power that they have. Therefore, in order to control this pollution, let's say for the next 3 years, the first thing that the government has to do is put in public domain that these are the targets, these are the actions, and these are the measurements that we will use. That has to be in public domain, in the newspapers, practically all over India, both in English as well as in all the vernacular languages. The second part is that the administration must also commit that we are going to do it. And the third is the Supreme Court. The Chief Justice, about say 15 days back, he did mention very clearly that the Supreme Court will monitor the implementation and the solutions of this thing by every 2 weeks. Now, if they do that and punish the errant and the delinquent and the, all such people who don't perform, they should be given a chance. Otherwise, I think their place is in the Tihar jail, because this clean air is part of, is a part of my, it's my fundamental right for, this thing to live. And I cannot live without air. There are so many judgments by the Supreme Court that they have said that a clean environment is part of my right to life. Now, what is to be done? Very simple things are there. I mean, I understand that this is a humongous task. It's a difficult task. Multiple agencies are involved in it, but it is not something which cannot be done. So let me just give you 2-3 examples because of the paucity of the time. Now, the first is everywhere, I mean, any time the first punishment is given to the common man, that their vehicles are taken off the road. Now, it is across the world, any vehicle which is running on petrol, diesel, or any fossil fuel will create a certain amount of particulate matter. The question is, how do you control it? Number one, by making sure ruthlessly that the norms of pollution, norms of emission are absolutely spot on. Anything, it has to be dealt with ruthlessly. Number two, we must, you see, in the whole of NCR, we have tremendous amount of congestion because of the number of vehicles. Now, a very simple thing, which is unfortunately not part of any of the plans by the government, is the staggered working hours. If we do that, we reduce the jam, we reduce the time the vehicle is on the road, and by that it is implied and it is achievable that about 20 to 40% of particulate matter coming from the vehicles will be taken off. Number two, dust. How does it, why is the dust in the air? There is a C&D, construction and demolition laws by rules. Now, why can't they be implemented? But this is where I'm saying these have to be ruthlessly implemented by the administrators and ruthlessly monitored by the government and the Supreme Court. And similarly, why are the polluting industries working? What did Beijing do? They just moved the polluting industries out of Beijing and scattered them all over the big area that they have. And this is what we need to do. We need to shut down or remove them to another places where the pollution levels are not that high. So that is again an actionable and a measurable thing for which there are enough laws, enough powers with the executive. Then keep on taking an example like this, do it like street cleaning. I mean, the road dust. Why can't this be swept? I mean, why does it have to be swept manually? Why can't we use, and which is what the plan is, to use mechanical, suction machines, and then washing these machines. Then on the roadsides, you have the footpaths. There on these footpaths, there is a plan that these will be either grassed out or they will be tiled so that there is no flying dust from there. So similar, these are very simple actions, but these have to be taken on the ground. And unfortunately, this is not happening. That's my tragedy, my problem with these people. So why can't we do simple things like this? I mean, and you have got, you eliminated two major causes of vehicular pollution. That's the PM 2.5. You've controlled the dust. You have reduced the PM 2. And then, unfortunately, in NCR particularly, the 24 kilometers of Yamuna River from Wazirabad to Okhla, this has to be cleaned up. Now, there is a judicial. Yeah, please.
Yes, unfortunately, Mr. Arya, we're running out of time for this discussion. But thank you very much for laying it out all there for us with NewsX World. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news, to Africa. In the Central African Republic, displaced young voters are lining up to collect voter cards ahead of Sunday's general elections, hoping the vote will bring peace and a better future. The elections will choose a president, members of parliament, and local leaders, with 7 candidates in the race, including President Faustin Archange Touadera, who is seeking a third term. Across the country, more than 416,000 people are living as internally displaced people. Most of them are under 25 of age and voting for the first time. Despite improved security in some areas, violence continues in the northeast, making this vote a defining moment for a generation shaped by conflict. Let's listen in.
Bizania zagavon bikana deva zagavona wambigovona savon sukula na bongo tmi bachita mbi upendre bongo miola na ekol
kat mum be chitndi iso carte electeur tmi chitangana bigombi vote na azu sosi bet mbaye na be Afrika chitana alekana ikodro merci la ima ku fadi carte electeur agapa ela so asina ya osimu merci na za paso carte na siawa bimun la sa osumbi batate mi chikuna lango sosi afake ba language so si mogochi vote na zuma shazi zuchi betmo chitombi gombi vote na.
Now we move on to Asia. In Myanmar, displaced civilians in the Saga Inc. region are voicing strong opposition to the upcoming election, calling it an unfair vote. Living in makeshift jungle shelters, they say they cannot support the election while their lives remain in danger amidst ongoing conflict. The military junta is set to oversee the polls starting on Sunday, presenting them as a return to democracy. However, critics and international observers argue that the month-long vote is merely a rebranding of military rule 5 years after the coup that sparked the civil war. The election is seen as heavily restricted, with limited participation and a growing humanitarian crisis. Let's listen into what some of the displaced civilians have shared.
ကျမဒါ9နေရာမြောက်ပါပဲဒီနေရာကိုတော့ကျမတို့မသိပါဘူးဘယ်နယ်လို့လဲကျမတို့ဒါအမှန်တိုင်းပြောတာပါမသိပါဘူးကျမတို့နေတာဝေယုံမေအောက်မှာဖျားခင်းနေရတာပါဘဝတွေလည်းကြမ်းလို့ကိုဘဝတွေကိုလည်းနားတယ်ဒီမေလို့ပြောရင်လည်းစိတ်နာတယ်ကျမတို့မိသားစုတွေခွဲတဲ့အတွက်လည်းတကယ်ရင်နဲ့ခံစားရတယ်အမေကိုလည်းလုံးတယ်အမောင်လေးတွေလည်းလုံးတယ်ဘယ်နေမှမသိကျမမှာဖုန်းလည်းမရှိပါဘူးသူများပေးမှာဆက်သွယ်ရတဲ့ဖုန်းကိုလည်းကျမအဲကြောင့်မလို့ရွာကိုလည်းအမြန်ပြန်ခြင်းနဲ့ သူတွေတကွယ်တများတွေတကယ်ဖြစ်နာပါကျမမေဆိုဖြူးမျိုးဘက်ကိုပါသွားတာဘယ်နေကောင်းလားသေးပြီလားလည်းမသိရပါဘူးကျမတကယ်ခံစားပါတယ်ဒါအမူအရာမာယာတွေနဲ့ပြောနေလည်းမဟုတ်ပါဘူးကြီးနေတဲ့ပြည်သူပြည်သားတွေလည်းကျမတို့လိုဒုက္ခရောက်နာတွေကိုဒီမအေးလိုဘက်ကနေပြီးတော့မဲတွေမပေးကြပါနဲ့ရောက်လေရမှာဒုက္ခတွေဖြစ်နေပါတယ်ဆိုတဲ့အကြောင်းတက်တယ်လို့မမြင်ဘူးကိုဘာလို့လဲဆိုတော့ဒီချိန်ဒီ9နှစ်အတွင်းဆိုရတိုင်းတာတခုမှလူပေါင်းဟို မိသားစုပေါင်းအသက်အိုးအိမ်စီစဉ်တိမ့်နဲ့ချီပြက်စီးပြီးတော့အလဲလဲကိုကမိသားစုတွေမှာ10ယောက်ရှိရဲ့လူက1ယောက်ပဲကျန်တဲ့ဟာမျိုးတို့9ယောက်ရှိတဲ့လို့1ယောက်ပဲကျန်1ယောက်မှမကျန်ခဲ့တဲ့ဟာမျိုးကြီးတော့လူပေါင်းများစွာအသက်ပေးပြီးမှလုပ်တဲ့ယူကောက်ပွဲတရားမျှတတဲ့ယူကောက်ပွဲတွေတော့ကိုတော့မထင်ဘူးကွာဟို2020တုန်းကယူကောက်ပွဲတော့ ACC နဲ့ပြီးသွားပြီးတော့လူတိုင်းကထောက်ခံတဲ့ယူကောက်ပွဲဆိုတော့အဲ့ဒီယူကောက်ပွဲနဲ့ရှိရင်ဒါက10ပုံပုံ1ပုံတောင်မှ တရားမျှတမှုရှိမယ်လို့ကိုတော့မထင်ဘူး။ရေကွက်ပွဲမှာတော့မေကတော့ယုံကြည်ချက်မရှိဘူးကွယ်။မေကတော့ဒီဘက်မှာပဲစိတ်ကအာတိတတဏပေါ့။အတူတူလက်ကလွတ်အောင်ဆိုပြီးတော့ဒီဘက်ကိုပြေးလာခဲ့လိုက်တာပဲ။မေကတော့လုံးဝကိုသူတို့ကိုမကြိုက်ဘူး။ဒါကြောင့်မို့လို့ဒုက္ခခံပြီးတော့ဒီမှာကလေးတွေတပြုံနောင်ကြီးနဲ့ဒီဘက်ကိုလိုက်လာတာ
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.